I think this is about putting Daniel Jones on notice. This is it, buddy. This is it. And now there's some talk that maybe Drew Lock
paid Daniel Jones. Literally. Yesterday. And now they already talking about moving off of him.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the New York Giants in today's video. This team's so fascinating to me because there's so much that I like. I love the defense. I love that they made a move for Brian Burns. I feel like it's flying so under the radar. I liked the revamped offensive line. I didn't mind moving off of Saquon Barkley, drafting Malik Neighbors. This defense has a lot of young, intriguing pieces. Their defensive line is literally loaded. And part of me wants to believe Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes can bring this team back into the playoffs and win a playoff game. But then I watched the film and I watched Daniel Jones and I even watched some highlights from that season. And I'm just thinking deep down, like, there's no way this works, right? There's no way Malik Neighbors takes Daniel Jones to a 4,000-yard passer and a 30-touchdown kind of guy. But we're going to talk about the Giants in today's video. But before we do, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Giants fans, I love you guys. Little worried about Daniel Jones, but we'll get through it. If we could try to get this video to 100 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So Brian Burns, really quickly, the Giants had just 34 sacks last season. That was tied for 28th in the National Football League, and they posted a quarterback rate or pressure rate of 31.4%. That was third worst in the NFL. Now, Brian Burns is one of the best in the business, all right? Pretty much every team in the NFL would love a dude like Brian Burns joining their roster. He's had at least 7.5 sacks in each of his first 5 years in the NFL, and he joins Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. Now, offensively is where all my concerns come in, because defensively, I like a lot of their pieces. I know there's some moving parts here. You picked up some guys on the offensive side, mainly, right? You know, Drew Lock, Devin Singletary, Allen Robinson, Jermaine Illuminor, John Runyon, Malik Neighbors, obviously. I saw a article and they were talking about like the worst case scenario for the New York Giants, and it went as this: significant offensive upgrades paved the way for a semi-competitive season despite more disappointment from Daniel Jones, leaving the Giants with a big decision and limited draft capital. Now, speaking of draft capital, the Giants have used a ton of draft capital on offensive players in the last several seasons. Just not much to show for it. Even in that, 9-7-1 season 2 years ago, it was still like, middle of the pack offense and the 5th worst passing offense in the NFL. But you got Daniel Jones, the 6th pick back in 2019. You got tackles Andrew Thomas, number 4 in 2020. Evan Neal, the 7th pick in 2022. 2 wide receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson, 2nd round 2022. Jalen Hyatt, 3rd round 2023. You can't have the 3rd worst offense in the NFL, the 2nd worst passing offense, which is what they had last year. Now, getting into the why, it needs to be mentioned that the offensive line was horrible. The group that allowed a league-leading 85 sacks last year needs to improve in every single category. Now, getting into a little bit more of the deeper dive, last year, the 2 stud tackles, Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal, wasted seasons. Right? Thomas missed half of the year with a leg injury. Neal was in and out of the lineup, and center John Michael Schmitz missed 4 games with a shoulder injury. And with that being said, you had horrible guards like the whole season. You can only do so much. So the young center kind of had a bad season, but the guards were like historically terrible. So now you've got a revamped guards. You got John Runyon Jr. and Jermaine Illuminor, and the other 3 players are healthy. So you need to improve this. You need to, more importantly, stay healthy, and you need to protect Daniel Jones so we can at least see if this is going to be the guy moving forward, because if not, the Giants have a really good opportunity to move off of him in this upcoming offseason. All right. So prior to Daniel Jones' ACL injury this past year, he's had a horrible season. All right, the offense in general for the New York Giants was terrible, right? Even Saquon Barkley had a horrible statistical season. Now, Daniel Jones was completing 67.5% of his throws, but he was averaging just 5.7 yards per pass attempt and threw for only 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And yes, if you guys remember, those 2 touchdowns were against the 2nd worst defense in the NFL, in the Arizona Cardinals, and they lost all the other games except that one game. So Daniel Jones last year went 1-5. Now, last offseason, we saw the Giants and Daniel Jones agree to a new 4-year contract worth $160 million, including $82 million paid out over the first 2 seasons. You are able to get out of it this season. Now, doing that would require them to take a dead cap hit of $22.2 million for the 2025 season, but the move would also create $19.3 million in cap space at that time. All in all, I am glad that they went with Malik Nabers over a quarterback because who's he going to throw to? You know, if you didn't draft Malik Nabers and you draft JJ McCarthy, who's JJ throwing it to, right? So 2022, let's talk about it. Daniel Jones completed 67% of his passes. He threw for 3,642 yards. He had 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he rushed for 805 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Now, here's where it gets tricky, and here's where I have a huge issue relying on Daniel Jones to be the franchise QB for the New York Giants. Because if I had to say it, I had a comment on my video the other day. I think it was my Lions video. They were saying, I love that you hype up my team, but it feels like you do that about every team. Look, I like what the Giants have built. I like what they're building around them. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, I'm really intrigued by both of those two wide receivers. If Wan'Dale can stay on the field, if he's got a quarterback throwing it to him. But you have to win when it matters. And that's just not Daniel Jones's prerogative, right? Daniel Jones, 6-21 against teams that went on to make the playoffs. In fact, he's 0-11 against teams that went on to win at least 12 games. He is the only quarterback with a current contract worth $100 million in total to never record a season with either 3,500 passing yards or 25 plus touchdown passes per NFL research. So that's where two new additions, in my opinion, are going to come in here and help you out drastically. And I'm not talking about, Allen Robinson or the departure of Darren Waller, which seems to be, coming at any given time. Malik Nabers, the 6th overall pick, led the FBS 120.7 receiving yards per game in 2023. 14 touchdowns, tied for the 3rd most in the FBS. He also had the most receptions of 20 plus yards at 34 and 30 plus yards at 17. Like, the dude's a walk-in playmaker. I can't believe it's, of course, only because he got drafted by the New York Giants. Coming out of college, this dude, outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., basically a generational talent. Day one impact player. Think Justin Jefferson. Think Jamar Chase. And now that he's on the Giants, people are saying, you know what? I think he's more of a late first-round pick, more of a mid-first-round pick. I think the Giants reached a little bit. If Daniel Jones is going to be that dude, Malik Nabers is going to help him be that dude, all right? So if the addition of Malik Nabers doesn't change the stats, doesn't change the wins, doesn't change the big-time, prime-time, crunch opportunity, win-losses for Daniel Jones, you move forward. You move on and you move forward, right? Devin Singletary also helps you out. So Saquon Barkley has accounted for 25% of the Giants' scrimmage touchdowns since 2018, the 2nd highest touchdown percentage in the NFL over that span. Now, Singletary, he can catch, he can run. He's rushed for 800 plus yards in each of his last 3 seasons, but he has not gone over 900 in a season during his career. I watched him every single game against Houston, or with Houston last season, once he was the full-time starter, and he did a perfectly good job. Also, real quick, we're running out of time here. Don't sleep on my man, Eric Gray. All right. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not feeling great about it, but hey, at the end of the day, you're going to have Malik Nabers for at least 4 seasons. So thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. But more importantly, is Daniel Jones the franchise quarterback for the New York Giants? Down below.